Cool. Okay, so we normally do these webinars sort of once a month. Will is kind of on holiday in Lisbon, so it's just myself and Sarah that are available at the moment. I'm going to put the link to the slides actually in the chat window as well. I'm just checking they're accessible. Here we go. And also there's going to be two other links that we're going to need as part of sort of today's session. I'm going to sort of put them in the chat window as well. And we're going to sort of come back to those in a minute. So this is an interactive kind of session, and I've got two parts to it. The first part is my sort of favorite GA reports, and the second part is some dashboards that you can sort of take away, and my sort of top 10 like GA dashboards. Oh, can you not hear me?
We can hear you, Phil.
Okay. So George just I know, check speaking. Okay. And so we've got about 45 minutes or so. So I'm gonna give people maybe just a couple of minutes just to log in. While I do that, I'm going to get the second kind of bookmark link, which people will need, which is... So with this second link, don't open this yet, and I'll explain what it is as we get to those slides, but just so you've got them for reference. If you can't copy, then I'll try and make sure that it's an actual link, so you click on it. There you go. Cool. So let's share my screen and get started. So present. Cool. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen now. Yeah, so as I said, we're going to cover these two parts here. So top sort of GA reports and top GA dashboards. So let's get started. Before we get started, a sort of fun fact about myself, which is in order to increase my productivity, I trained my twin. I've got an identical twin, so he knows absolutely nothing about Google Analytics, but he's a tennis coach, and we both used to play tennis quite a lot, but he's very good on bounce rate. Okay, as the rest of the audience have left. So one other thing on here regarding Google Analytics and Google Analytics reports, we're going to do a kind of a sort of almost an interactive sort of piece now. So what I suggest, if you've got a particular Google Analytics site that you're working on, either it's your own site if you're a client site, or it's an agency and it's a site you're working on, if you log into that account, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through how you'd build kind of an insight audit using the Google Analytics reports. So if you log into that account, if you don't have a Google Analytics account to hand, what you can do is you can use the Google Analytics demo account. So that's like an ECommerce account. If you search for a Google Analytics demo account, just on Google, and then it'll take you pretty much the first page on Google, and you'll see like this page here, it says Google Analytics Solutions. You'll scroll right down to the bottom of that page, and right in the middle or bottom-ish, you'll see it says Access Demo Account. For this, we're going to mainly be using Google Analytics 3, but it should also probably links to the Google Analytics 4 demo account and an app account. So yeah, as I said, if you don't have a GA account to hand, you can use that demo account. Part of this here is going to be is a process I'm just going to teach you, and the second bit is some bookmark reports that you can import. So the first thing you're going to need is your Google Analytics account ID. So this is not the UA ID that you see on the front end of a website. This is the long, it's like about 32 character kind of string that you see when you're in the Google Analytics interface, and it's that gobbledygook bit kind of there. If you can log into the interface and copy that number so you've got it to hand, because you're going to need it for the next step. And oops, so the next step is what we're going to do is that the way that the Google Analytics 3 kind of interface works is you can actually navigate to any report that's pre-built or pre-filtered by just using, in effect, the URL at the top here. So when you're setting up either the chart above or filters or refinements, then that's all. You'll see it in the actual URL as query string parameters. So the great thing about that is if you've got a bunch of pre-built reports, then you can jump to those reports. So that's basically what we're going to do next now. I've shared a link in the chat, which is to the GA reports 2 kind of a link. Now that will go to Dropbox and it will be a text file. If you could grab or download that Dropbox text file and save it on your desktop. So it would be the one here that says GA reports 2. Basically open that file. And at the top here, it should say download. And basically when that downloads, just like save it on your desktop somewhere. So put it on there. I think I've done it already. And then we're going to need to use this file in a minute. You'll notice within that file, it's got instructions at the top where it says, please replace the word XXX with your GA account ID. So guess what I'm going to ask you to do next. So open that, download that file. So the bit.ly/GA-report-list2, open that text file in Notepad, and it says on this, it says the word replace me, but actually it's the word XXX. And then that's what you need to replace with your Google Analytics report ID. So I'm just going to give you a few moments just to do that and see how people are getting on with just that first kind of bit of the process, or if you got stuck downloading that. Was everyone able to open the Dropbox link? Did that work? And have you saved that file on your desktop? So just answer in chat just to let me know if I'm going like too quickly. Hopefully everyone's kind of good. Cool. And all right, so as I said, the next bit, whoops, I escaped from this for a second, is we're gonna, as I said, get that. So I'm gonna open up an account that I've just got active here, and we're gonna grab this account ID, this long string at the top here, and I'm gonna just replace it, the XXX number here with my account ID. Hit replace and then just save this file. So that's the bit that I need you to do now. So get that copy of the links to the GA reports, grab that the XXX kind of bit there and replace that with your Google Analytics reporting ID. So and then you can test to see if it worked by just opening one of these bookmark links here, and it should, all being well, take you to a report. And the ID should be your own report from this list, or the Google Analytics sort of e-commerce demo site. Cool. Don't see the link. Did that work for everyone when they opened that? So the link itself. So the link to the report that we're using is this one, the bit.ly link. Whoops, which is HTTP. I'll put this on there actually. So that's the link to the list of reports or the text file, and that's the one you need to save on your desktop and then replace your account ID with your ID from Google Analytics. Oops. Cool. Okay. So hopefully everyone's with me so far. And I'm just going to give you a bit of an example. So this is a story. This is a lead gen website. It's actually a charity called Computer Aid. Now the charity here, their website has changed a bit since this screenshot was generated. But Computer Aid had two kind of goals on their website. They had a goal of donating computers, which was worth, so this was users that had a second-hand computer, and let's say you upgraded your computer and you want to donate it to schools in South Africa. And that's worth roughly about £50 in sort of virtual money to Computer Aid. They also had an option on there, which was to, if it's a school in South Africa or Africa in general, if those schools wanted to apply for sort of second-hand or refurbished computers, then the option was available for them. Both of these two kind of goals or actions were worth roughly about the same amount for Computer Aid. They're both worth around £50. So if you can open that first report in that list, and it will take you to the best and worst landing pages. So here I've got examples from Computer Aid. And this one's actually sorting via a weighted bounce rate. So a lot of people don't even realize this feature or setting exists. Normally when you sort via bounce rate, it shows you like pages that are like 100% bounce or 0% bounce. It's not actually that helpful. What's more helpful is to see which pages are sorted via bounce rate, but account for volume of people landing on those pages. So in this example with Computer Aid, they had a lot of traffic. In this case, it was sort of Google Ads traffic that was landing on a Spanish apply sort of for a computer sort of page, but had a really high bad bounce rate, almost 90%, with a huge amount of volume on that. So when we drilled into this, it turned out that they were kind of buying ads in English and sending it to a sort of a Spanish sort of form page. Hence why the bounce rate was so not good. So but that one kind of bubbled to the top in the sense that an action needed to be taken on that particular landing page, which obviously was to change the destination URL. So in this report here, so this is now sorting via that weighted bounce rate sort of setting. So when you open that report in here, if I just grab it from that text list as the first one, and oops, it didn't apply. It's and you can see that the weighted sort is automatically set, and it's sorted via best and worst. So if you click on bounce rate again, it will then sort via the best kind of pages. If you don't have a huge amount of data sort of showing on here, you can select kind of a broader sort of time range. And ideally, it should be set to like the last kind of 12 weeks, but you can just change it to the last 30 days if you so wish. Just as a note on the Google Analytics interface, the last 30 days, you've got to kind of miss off the Sunday. So I'm actually going to select that range there, just so these reports kind of look roughly about right. Cool. So so what do you see when you in that list on bounce rate where you've got best and worst? Does it show a page that's kind of overperforming in that list and certain pages that are underperforming? Also on that date range, was it defaulting? What time period did it show on there? Because it should be the last kind of 12 weeks on that one, although for some reason when I opened some of these, they didn't adjust that date range. So I might just need to check these on there. So let me know what you saw when we kind of opened those reports. If I jump back to the computer aid example, they also had some event pages there, which were also kind of high, relatively high on bounce rate, and also sort of a 404 page on there, which was not performing well because obviously it's broken. So this is a good starting point. Obviously, if people kind of bounce on the site, then they've not got beyond the first page, or they've not got beyond a second interaction. So they're not, definitely not converting, and definitely improvements need to be made on these pages. Okay, so there will be a recording of this webinar. So if I'm going too quickly, you can always kind of pause and jump back to a particular report in the recording. I will probably maybe just afterwards sort of update the bookmark just to adjust some of those dates. But I'm going to jump to the next report on the list here, which is the pages by revenue contribution. So just going back to that computer aid example, we had a page here which is an inquiry thank you. So that page was worth about £50 to computer aid, and the way that page value works is it distributes that £50 into the number of other pages that someone visited before they converted. So in this case, looks like someone's maybe even visited that page directly for it to equal £50, or there's been 2 conversions of 50. But normally it would be, you can see that these other pages here where you've got inquiry and apply, where they've got to visit a form first before being able to complete that thank you page. So these pages here have contributed to the main action, as in they generated computer aid sort of virtual revenue in this case. And on the flip side, there's some pages down here which are not generating revenue or not resulting in conversions. So for some reason, this particular donation form is kind of underperforming. It doesn't necessarily tell me why that's underperforming, but it's an indication that either conversion rate optimization needs to be done on that page, or traffic pointing to that page needs to be adjusted, or maybe if you've got tools such as Hotjar, and it would be worth kind of replaying people that have visited that page to see why they didn't submit the form. It could also be things like conversion leakage, so like a phone number on that form which is distracting people, or sometimes there may be non-commercial forms on here. So if it's like a job application form which is not a macro goal, then that may also be in that list. If you do see a page value of 0 here, that means that you've not set a goal value for one of your main actions. So as I said, on that example with computer aid, I picked £50 for both of their 2 main goals. Normally the way you'd work out how much a goal is worth to you would be, for a lead gen website, you'd look at the lead to sale conversion rate, and then look at the value or average value of a sale, and that would give you your goal value. But the good thing about using those goal values is if you have 2 main actions on a site, let's say if it's a SaaS-based website or a software as a service, and you've got like a demo sign up and a contact form, then the advantage of using page value is it allows you to blend those 2 kind of main metrics together, and you can then sort of see it in one sort of almost like a North Star metric to see what's kind of making you money, like per page, and what's not. With all of these reports, I suggest looking at like the best, so and also the worst. So if you click on that sort at the top and just do ascending, you'll get all the ones that are 0 and not making money. The only problem with page value, unlike bounce rate, is you can't sort via weighted on page value. So what you can do instead, though, if you're trying to look at these non-converting pages, is if you filter the settings on that report and say, show me everything that has, let's say, more than 1,000 page views, and then sort via page value, then you get around that problem of kind of low data volumes. and a lack of weighted sort on there. If you do see lots of parameters on here, like the Facebook click ID or the Microsoft kind of click ID, or lots of kind of gobbledygook kind of in there, it means that your landing pages or pages in general might need kind of cleaning up. And you need to add what are called exclude parameters in there. That's generally probably if you are seeing lots of those, or you're seeing like, I don't know, 10,000 rows of data, then I suggest if you reach out to us and we can quickly kind of fix that problem. Just one note on Google Analytics 4, really annoyingly, they don't have exclude parameters. And as soon as they do introduce that feature, I'll let you know. But this is a Google Analytics 3 kind of interface on here. So we've covered those first two reports. So we're going to jump to the third one on that list, which is sort of site search, kind of sorted via sort of refinement or abandonment. So if you try that third link there, now you can't see the page value field on the site search report, so you've got to use a custom report to actually see that, but you can sort via the number of refinements, which is an indication that someone's not found what they're looking for and they keep searching again. But as a discussion sort of point, on this case, again on Computer Aid, so they actually had people that searching for toner cartridges or donating toners and recycling, and obviously they did printer recycling as well as computer recycling. So these two phrases were actually good kind of converting phrases for them. So that's really good, although they were missing a trick in the sense that some people were searching for an ink cartridge number, a bit like a computer ID, and a reasonable number of people, and those users were not kind of converting. So there may be a kind of an opportunity to improve their internal site search when they've got like 0 results returned for particular phrases, or introduce better kind of logic on those site search phrases. Sometimes like updating the no results page, saying, try searching for toner or recycling, or a link to a category page may be a way to get around that particular problem. They also had, as I said, people searching for jobs on here as a non-commercial phrase, and which were getting 0 kind of sort of goals or donations on there. Obviously, if your site doesn't have a site search, then obviously just jump past this particular bit. You can also use the site search category field to do a similar sort of thing, and also and maybe possibly for a webinar for next week, if you're on a WordPress site, it's actually really easy to see the number of 0 search results found. So that's when someone does a search, gets 0 results, and it's actually really helpful for SEO, for content creation, for seeing those types of searches. You can do it for non-WordPress sites, but you've got to use some tweaks within GTM to look at the site search page to get that information. So the other report that's kind of in that list here is, I'm going to jump to the number 4 here, which says broken pages by referral. So here we go. So this, again, it's from Computer Aid. So this is people that click from another site and land on Computer Aid. So they, in this case, they had a really good link from Wikipedia, a very powerful link, and people were clicking on that, and it was landing on a broken 404 page. So obviously terrible for SEO. They really want it landing on either the home page or the sort of donate page. Definitely something they should log in and fix. And because this method of reporting allows you to filter by volume, it gives you a kind of priority list of which pages you should go off and fix. So in this case, with broken pages, you could either contact the site owner, or of Wikipedia, you could try and edit the entry, or you could add a redirect from the broken page through to the correct page, which may be slightly easier to do. If you want to try and work out which page exactly someone's coming from. Let's say with that Wikipedia one, you can actually drill down into the referral source and see where it is. So here we've got Wikipedia information. So it's this one page where the broken link is coming from. So this is great kind of SEO kind of information. If this report kind of didn't show any data, you may need to just slightly tweak it. The way that it works is it looks at the sort of 404 page title, which normally is something like the word page not found. So you can find out what your 404 sort of page is by just visiting a site and just going to a standard 404 page and looking at that page title, and just adjusting that in the sort of drop down settings. So on the filter list at the top, it'll say like the word page.title just up the top here. Just if you rename that to whatever your page title is, then that report will sort of populate. Cool. And so these other sort of style reports are more for kind of awareness. So it's quite useful sometimes to like quickly work out, which traffic sources are my sort of discovery channels and which are sort of returning sort of channels or closing channels. So you can do this by just looking at in this case the medium or default channel grouping, and then look at sessions and then new sessions or returning sessions, and just sorting via that new count or returning count, just to give you a quick kind of insight into which are my discovery kind of channels. And also quickly break out your new user conversion rate from your returning user conversion rate. So the reason why this is important is sometimes like returning users generally have kind of higher or better conversion rates. So it's good just to get that kind of quick kind of snapshot. So in this case, you can see we've got paid search here, much better returning conversion rate here than a brand new kind of visit. So this is just really a way of kind of breaking out a blended average, just to split it out into those two bits. I'll probably talk another time about using like assisted conversions, which is exposed in the Google Analytics sort of 3 API, and also multi-channel funnel conversions in GA4 with data-driven, where it distributes the conversion between the number of touch points. But as an initial step, it's quite good just to quickly kind of check, like, where are all the new sessions coming from, or where are all the returning sessions coming from. And as I said, you can use default channel grouping rather than medium in this case for a slightly kind of more broken out sort of report. So the other ones, I'm actually probably going to just jump to these other bits more as kind of discussion topics, and these are really more for for e-commerce websites. So on that Google Analytics kind of demo sort of site that I mentioned earlier, it has conversion probability enabled. So what that is it's a number between like 1 and 100, and it's the chance of someone actually sort of converting or purchasing. So that's super useful for e-commerce and potentially for lead gen, because on e-commerce normally it's maybe a 2% conversion rate. But the problem is there's a lot of users that will click add to cart, interact with product pages that get very close to converting, but not actually convert. So that transaction probability kind of metric is just allows you to just kind of more accurately report on quality sessions, and not like completely not just focus on the converted. So, and that probably you'll find that link probably doesn't work unless you've got e-commerce enabled. It is possible, however, on lead gen websites or non-e-commerce sites to do sort of pseudo e-commerce, or basically set up a lead gen website so it runs in e-commerce mode, and then you do get access to that conversion probability kind of metric, or sort of session quality kind of metric. I'm going to sort of jump ahead on here. Just some other kind of places to look. So in Google Analytics, if someone's gonna say to you, what's changed or what's up and what's down, so the smart reports or intelligent alerts is a really good place to sort of check that to see. So you'd normally see that in the top right where it says this number 4 on Insight, and it's basically something's adjusted or changed. So in this case, we've got more users than the month before, or a particular campaign is overperforming, but returns from compared to the month before are need improving. So it's kind of quite good for a quick kind of like a what's good, what could be improved. So it's like a thumbs up, thumbs down. So these are intelligent alerts, and in Google Analytics 4, these have been expanded. So they use machine learning, and you can also there's some sort of additional kind of probability sort of intelligent alerts in GA4. A lot of people at the moment are still using the GA3 kind of interface. So I've just used these ones as a quick example. But yeah, you can also, as a key kind of suggestion or key action, I'd suggest setting up a custom alert, not an intelligent alert, for something like your conversion rate that has reduced by 50% compared to the day of yesterday versus the day of the previous week. So the way you would do that would be under custom alerts here, and it would be a new custom alert for conversions or a particular goal sort of page, and then it's compared to let's say if it's conversion rate minus 50%, oops, in this case it's sessions, but it could be conversions, and send you an alert, an email alert when that triggers. So that's quite good to enable. And the same with 404 spikes, send you an alert if, let's say, page views of 404s have gone by, increased by more than 50% or above a certain threshold. Again, in GA4's now got hourly alerts rather than daily alerts, because these have to run for 24 hours and then send you an alert at 9 a.m. the next day. So GA4, they have improved that, which is quite cool. So we've covered that one. And then just on the subject of alerts, if you haven't got the Google Analytics app installed, it does a very nice kind of hourly report. So if you're out and about and you've done a big email push, or I don't know, say a offline event, and you want to check, see how many people are online or converting in a particular hour of the day, then it's got a very nice kind of interface for seeing that particular thing, or accessing the real-time report on the fly. So that's and here's an example of the intelligent alerts kind of on the app. There's one useful little takeaway which I'm just going to mention on the app, which is quite good if you're in a boardroom meeting. The very few people kind of use this, but it's quite a handy feature. On the GA app, you can actually use the bit like the Ask Alexa kind of button. There's an option where you can ask Analytics a question. And basically, you can open the app and say, how many users visited my site this month. Obviously, it uses audio to text, does the text query to Google Analytics, and then returns the answer visually on the screen. So quite handy when a very quick answer there and then. And it's an easy interface to use for non-analysts. So we've covered those alerts on GA3. I'm going to now jump to a sort of a slightly different section, which is actually, I'm just going to quickly mention about Google Sheets. So there's a plugin for Google Analytics for Google Sheets. So if it's really handy, it's totally free. I think there's an example on here as an API example. So for any reports that you're manually generating, if you let's just make a copy of this one. And you can basically, sorry, bit of background noise there. You can basically go data, extensions, add-ons, Google Analytics, and then create new report, and it allows you to pull that data out of Google Analytics into Google Sheets and then potentially run it like every day automatically. What's also cool.
Yeah. Are you sharing the screen?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, whoops. So this is, I've got just a Google Sheet here, and I've got the Google Analytics plugin for Google Sheets enabled, which I'll just put a link to in the chat window. Whoops. It's basically this plugin, it's quite handy because it automatically runs, or can be set to automatically run like 9 o'clock every day, and oops, when it's like this here, and it can also, as a little bonus thing, if you can't access Google Sheets, or if they're blocked on your network, you can actually get this to, after it runs an update to refresh the data, you can set it to send the file as an Excel attachment, like on a Monday morning. So I'll send that as a sort of script example kind of after this call. So I'm just going to jump back to the slides. And we're just going to now cover some sort of dashboard examples. So just as a quick note, in Google Analytics 3, you can actually import the sort of shared dashboard library by just going onto dashboards and then like import from the list. And search for maybe like an SEO dashboard or a PPC dashboard and import that. However, there are some slight problems with those dashboards, so they don't necessarily know which are your primary goals, or which is goal 1, goal 2, goal 20, etc. So they're slightly limited in that sense. So what we do to get around that problem is we use sort of calculated goals, and then we use those calculated goals for the dashboards. So let me just show you what I mean by a calculated goal. So I'm just going to jump to the next bit, which is, oops, actually, sorry, just before I jump to the next bit, I'm just going to summarize what we've just covered there. So with those sort of those 10-ish sort of reports that I've mentioned, what you can do is you can put the PDF, you can export all of those reports.
Phil, you're on mute.
So you can do an export of each of those 12 reports, blend them all together, and then you end up with a kind of an insight audit document. So basically, you download as PDF, put all those reports together, join them as a PDF merge, and then that gives you your insight audit. So it's kind of a handy kind of a quick kind of process to blend stuff to create that one-page kind of insight audit. Right, so now I was going to talk about calculated metrics. Sorry, got it in a slightly wrong order there. So what are calculated metrics, or calculated goals even specifically? So there's that common problem with those shared dashboards, is that you can import them, but they're not going to work properly, because whenever people add goals into Google Analytics, they always pick random numbers. So it could be goal 1, it could be goal 7, it could be goal 4, etc. And it just makes it impossible to standardize those dashboards. So here's an example from e-commerce. So they're never standardized, and that causes a huge problem when you're trying to get them going into both Google Analytics reports, Data Studio, Google Sheets, BigQuery, etc. So the simple, really easy way to get around that and fix that issue is to use calculated goals. So what on earth are calculated goals? So that would be where you create a calculated metric. In this case, I've got one called total goals, and you add your primary or your macro goals together. In this case, as an integer, and then you reference that within all your dashboards and all of your Data Studio reports, etc. So they're a huge way of just standardizing and saving a massive amount of time when you're building out a long list of dashboards and Data Studio reports. Here's some examples of 5 common sort of metrics that we normally have to sort of standardize. So not just kind of total goal counts, but things like your conversion rate for multiple conversion actions, abandonment rate or goal funnel conversion rate, per session value for multiple goals, and a blended sort of CPA. So it also means if you add a new goal to that list, let's say you turn on phone call tracking, it makes it a lot easier to edit that list and add goal 3. So you don't need to go in and edit all of your GA reports and Data Studio reports, just add it in this one place, and it then just flows through all to the other dashboards. So they're a really big thing, hugely useful. If you're not using them already, you should be. Here's some other e-commerce specific examples of calculated metrics. And another useful one for removing refund amount, tax and delivery on reporting, which is a common problem on UK sites where you want to take off VAT and shipping for reporting. Before kind of importing these 2 dashboard links down here, we have to do a prerequisite step. So these 2 links won't work until we first create these 2 calculated metrics. So what I need you to do is you need to go to Google Analytics and create a total goals and a goal conversion rate kind of metric. So if you go into Google Analytics 3 and go to calculated metrics, and click new calculated metric, and the first one is going to be, what did I call it on here, total goals, and it needs to be lowercase because in this example, and in this case it would be an integer because it's a number, and this is where you'd want to select your goals. So we've got a contact and let's say a play video in this case, so that you save that, and then you'd need to then create a secondary one called goal conversion rate. So I'm just going to do that again on here, which would be a percentage, and was it contact divided by plus video cool. And I'm just going to save that. So we now have these 2 oh, I made an intentional mistake there. Just one note about the calculated goals. If you get the name wrong, you can't edit it in here. So you have to basically delete the goal and do it again. So obviously I did that intentionally just so you could see me make that mistake. I'm just going to delete it here and do that one again and just click goal conversion rate, which was, oh, that was actually the right one. Lowercase and percentage, and then add it in here like that. Cool. And now you can open those 2 links below. So if you're a lead gen website, open the first one. If it's e-commerce, open the second one. So I'm just going to pick that first one on here, and I'm going to import it into the main profile and click create. Now, this is going to import so 20 reports into your Google Analytics 3 sort of interface, and these are going to be referencing those two calculated metrics. There is a sort of one thing to note about Google Analytics 3 sort of dashboard reports is they only add them on your email address. So here, rather annoyingly, it doesn't share these with all users. So there is a secondary step which you'll need to do, which is to go into each report here and click on the little share object link at the top here. And unfortunately, you've got to individually do that for these 20 reports. But by doing so, it then kind of adds this data or shares these reports with all users so that have access to the account. So on here, you see it now says shared. You'll have one that says private, which is what you've just imported, and shared, which other users have access to. Hopefully that's useful for you, and you've now in effect got 20 reports that you didn't have access to before. So that list of 20 reports, there's about 5 real-time reports kind of in that list. And then there's an enhanced e-commerce one, there's a channels dashboard, site speed, SEO dashboard, etc. Feel free to kind of go through that list. So I'm conscious of time. We've got maybe sort of 10 minutes left for questions. So I'm just going to kind of open the room up for the next 10 minutes just to see if people find those reports useful, and if they've got any sort of questions about what I've sort of described. If you raise your hand, I can also promote you to the stage. Also, as I said, we'll send a recording of this kind of after the event. So if I've been going too quickly, you can kind of go at your own sort of pace. The key thing we've been trying to sort of give away here really is this method of getting the 10 kind of insight report PDFs all together, and then the second one is to be able to walk away with 20 new reports in Google Analytics that you didn't have access to before. So one of the things you may be thinking is, why are we using GA3 here? It's because it's easier to sort of share reports in GA3, and also especially for real-time reports. And there'll probably come a point where GA4 becomes the primary solution, but the interface is radically different at the moment. So hence why I've sort of focused on that bit. Also, Data Studio doesn't at the moment support real-time reports, so there are some instances where the GA3 kind of has an advantage. So a question, did you consider a list of custom reports for GA4? Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that we'll probably sort of do for next time. Obviously, the GA4 interface is kind of in flux. It's we're sort of waiting for it to become more standardized. There are ways of editing the GA4 interface to make it more like GA3 and make it more kind of usable, but we'll sort of cover those on another call. I definitely, if people are not if they've not got GA4 enabled, you definitely should. At the moment, there's no migration path from GA3 to GA4, so you have to parallel track. But there are some like killer features in GA4, such as the BigQuery sort of free connection and ability to import CSV files and do historic events rather than like events for today. And then the predictive audiences is quite sort of sweet. Cool. All right, so hopefully that's been useful for people. If you've got any particular topics you want us to cover for next time, please put it in the chat window, or reach out to myself or Sarah. So our emails are in chat. I'll just see if anyone else has got any other sort of further questions before we sort of wrap up. Just having a quick look on chat to see if there's anything else kind of in there. A topic. GA is going to legal in Germany and other countries. That's a really interesting one. Yeah, I'll just give you my thoughts on that. There's, for people that have been following, there's been an issue with a site called NetDoctor in Austria, which was using GA3 and they didn't turn on anonymize IP. So anonymize IP is automatically turned on GA4, but what it means is the last 3 octlets of the IP address are not sort of removed kind of almost when Google Analytics processes them. And because IP addresses are counted as personal data and it's passing from Europe to America where the data is processed, it's counted as a GDPR sort of breach. It's a simple fix, which is to go into GA3 or go into GTM and go onto the anonymize IP setting and set it to true rather than the default, which is false. And that then means that Google Analytics is then legal. I'm kind of hoping that Google Analytics will roll out an update to analytics.javascript where this changes the default to on, but they haven't done that yet, and I'm sort of pending a new release. But yeah, if you've got GA3 running, Universal Analytics, and you haven't changed the setting for anonymized IP to true, then just do it now, because there is a real risk that there'll be privacy police and ambulance chasers going after sites that haven't turned on that setting. And you've got to remember that Google Analytics or Google kind of passes the buck to the client that puts the Google Analytics code on the site. So they use that as a way of saying, look, we're not liable. And then Google do the same on Android App Store, where they, as part of their terms and conditions sort of thing. So, they basically try and say that the website owner is liable for that. So, yeah, definitely turn on that setting if you haven't already. Along the same lines, what's not been mentioned on that, the anonymized IP one, but I'm just making people aware of, is there's also 2 other settings which often get missed, which is allow add features and allow personalization in Google Analytics. Those should also be defaulted to off or false until the user has accepted cookies. Or you've got a positive opt-in. So that's an additional setting that I'd recommend also adjusting if as part of any compliance kind of checks. But great question there, and very relevant. So on date ranges and KPIs, what date ranges should be used for KPIs, revenue conversion? So I normally suggest I need to adjust those report links. Try and use 4 weekly rather than monthly, because if you compare a month of February, 28 days, with a month of January where you got 31 days, it's not a fair comparison. So last 4 weeks is always the generally recommended, and also comparing to 4 weeks of the previous year rather than 4 weeks of the previous month is better. The only reason with those report links I selected the Sunday rather than the Saturday rather than the Sunday was because the web interface for GA3 on the graph at the top, that clusters weeks starting on a Saturday. So if I selected the Sunday, you have one day where it's kind of misaligned. So it's just a kind of nuance to the web interface for charts. But yeah, generally 4 weekly blocks starting on a Monday compared to 4 weeks of the previous year. And in terms of average conversion rates per industry, I think Mountain Metrics used to have some examples that they published. I think eConsultancy did something a while ago. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I would suggest comparing like where you are versus the same time of last year is always a good starting point for like internal benchmarking. But on the benchmarking reports in Google Analytics, they only show benchmarks for sessions, for device types and channels. They don't show e-commerce benchmarks, not at least not as part of the benchmarking feature. But it would be handy if they did. Also, if you get any PII URLs from marketers, yeah, we always recommend adding a Google Analytics filter to remove any email addresses in URLs and also in the event label. And it's also a good idea to have one Google Analytics profile which has all URLs and all hash fragments removed, just as a fail-safe. And also, if you use Screaming Frog for connect Screaming Frog to Google Analytics, it's quite handy to have a profile that doesn't have any parameters in there as well. But yeah, you need to be very careful about capturing email addresses because you know, it can cause a Google Analytics account to be deleted. And we are about to do a blog post about if you have a site where you've accidentally captured email addresses, you can use the measurement protocol API to individually remove users on their own, rather than doing a kind of a drop table or delete URL request, which is obviously just kills all URL data, which is not ideal. So there are potential mitigations if you need to clean up your data from PIIs without deleting everything. And also on GA4, we always recommend changing the setting from 2 months for data retention, normally back up to like 16 months, because 2 months is normally a bit too short. But yeah, you can shorten retention periods to if you're really worried about like PIIs or that sort of thing. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. Hopefully that's been useful for people. And as I said, we're open to ideas or things to cover for next week. One thing I would quite like to do would be to individually go through people's questions in more detail. So if you've got a particularly burning issue, like such as, you know, PIIs in Germany or Austria, or you know, custom reports in GA4, if you can send us those questions sort of in chat or to Sarah, and then we can do a webinar covering your individual questions in more detail. So yeah, that would be a great sort of thing to do. So all right, thanks everyone, and hopefully it's been useful. All right, cheers, bye.